Welcome to Dear Esther, a new game that I'm dropping on the channel today that I've been quite curious about for a little while now. It's actually been sitting on my Xbox console collecting dust for years, and it's always been one that I was meaning to get around to. Just another one that we're pulling out of the backlog. I've made like a small list of a couple of like short sub 3-hour games that I feel like I could get around to when I'm like in the mood just to like play something a little bit different. And this was another one of those games. Last week we did What Remains of Edith Finch, and today we're doing Dear Esther. Now, something that I actually know about this game since, installing it years ago was this used to be a Half-Life 2 mod. I think that information found its way over to me when I started playing the Half-Life games on the channel, and I think this game got name dropped as a recommendation with that little tidbit of information that this used to be a mod for Half-Life 2, which is really interesting actually. So I feel like it'll probably play similar, at least source engine shenanigans type thing. So that'll be quite interesting to check out. That's all I know about this game going in, so we're just going to jump in and see what it's all about. So let's start the game. It even has a director's commentary, which is cool. Okay, progress is saved at the end of each chapter, so we just have our first chapter, which is The Lighthouse. Let's begin.
Dear Esther, I sometimes feel as if I've given birth to this island. Somewhere between the longitude and latitude, a split opened up, and it beached remotely here. No matter how hard I correlate, it remains a singularity, an alpha point in my life that refuses all hypothesis. I return each time leaving fresh markers that I hope, in the full glare of my hopelessness, will have blossomed into fresh insight in the interim.
Okay. Just taking a look, we have a lot of options to just zoom in on things. That's good, just getting a feel for the controls. Alright, The Lighthouse. So we're having someone write us a letter. I'm assuming we're Esther, and someone is writing us a letter. And we will go through that narration as we explore the areas of this place. Let's take a look. Oh, automatic flashlight usage. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, like I said, I have no idea what I'm getting into. So at the moment it seems that all the controls are just walking and looking. So we are going to just walk and look until maybe we are told otherwise. Oh, no. Is this a, this looks like, God, I'm not smart enough for this. This looks like one of those, molecule science-y thingies, Looks like one of those things where they do the, you know what I'm talking about if you're smart. I don't have the word for it right now. I dropped my science class when I was in the 10th grade. Okay. But it is like a blue paint of some kind. I have found the legendary paint cave. There it is. Okay. Up or down? Oh, damn. Down. We're going this way. And then, gosh darn it, we're going up that way again, probably, if we turn around. I must explore all paths. Just on a bit of a rocky beach walk instead at the moment. I wonder if it'll sort of have a similar experience to Edith Finch, where you walk and you hit a certain point and then you'll have more narration come up. Or not. Yeah, I'm just playing some longer games on the channel right now that are like decent length, you know, quite a few episodes, and sometimes it's good to just kind of reset and refresh your brain a little bit with just something a little bit different, something you can complete in a shorter amount of time. And this has been really nice to check out. I really liked dropping Edith Finch in between all of that last week. And like I said,
when you were born, your mother told me, a hush fell over the delivery room. A great red birthmark covered the left side of your face. No one knew what to say, so you cried to fill the vacuum. I always admired you for that you cried to fill whatever vacuum you found. I began to manufacture vacuums just to enable you to deploy your talent. The birthmark faded by the time you were 6 and had gone completely by the time we met, but your fascination with the empty and its cure remained.
Oh, okay. Okay. By the time that they met. I don't know when the dialogue's going to come in. Yeah, what I've really been enjoying is just putting together a short little list of games that you can complete in a few hours, and therefore I can do them in like one singular episode, which is nice. I have a playlist of games on the channel. The playlist is called Games Completed in One Video, you know, very accurately titled. And it has a few games in there that I was just like, yeah, let's see if we can do this in one video. So this is like the first of a few that I've done. Okay, so that would have been a dead end if we went up there, but now we can go up this way. Okay. I feel like that's going to be the way to go. So we're just going to quickly explore a little bit more down here. Yeah, I've played Limbo, Inside, 12 Minutes, and Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons. Is that what it's called? I think it's Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons. The main title is Brothers, and I've played all of those in one video, and those were really nice experiences. I really like being able to do a full playthrough. Oh god, no, this pathway continues. Okay. Multiple pathways always stresses me out. I'm stressed and the game isn't even stressful. It's supposed to be a relaxing beach walk. Oh, it's the, it's that, I don't know what it's called. I see this in memes all the time. Oh, it's the perfect round, rotund, circular thingy. Look how intelligent I am, guys. I know things, and I can articulate my thoughts very, very well. I know this. You see it edited on cats when they are perfectly round. So it's interesting that this is marked on the beach for some reason, though. It has a fancier name than that perfectly round meme symbol, but you know where, again, you know what I mean, right? You know. I'm not a college professor. I
found the ship's manifest, crumpled and waterlogged under a stash of paint cans. It tells me that along with this present cargo, there was a large quantity of antacid yogurt bound for the European market. It must have washed out to sea. God knows there are no longer gulls or goats here to eat it.
Okay. I think we may have potentially hit another dead end here. That's part of a train carriage underneath it. Some, right? Like the wheel part that go underneath it, but just one singular. I guess maybe with the tire, it might have actually been a chassis of a car instead. Just my first thought looking at that on its own was like, train carriage? But maybe the tire might signify a vehicle, a car of some kind. And that's all that remains of it? Okay, I'm not sure. There's no jump, so it really just is like... If you see a path like this, most likely turn around. So now it looks like we'll go back up that other path. All right, up we go. So I think what I'm gathering there is there are missable things to see here. Like if I just went up that pathway there without coming here, I would have missed this. And then the dialogue about the ship's manifest. Now, similar to Edith Finch, this is a walking simulator, it seems, so there is no sprint. We're on a brisk stroll, you know. There's no rush here. There's no rush. It's just one of those times where you just hear the waves crashing, listen to the sound of my voice. And we're getting retrospective. We're just getting a little bit, you know, nostalgic for days long past, apparently, as we're reading this letter. But someone that we know has written to us that they met us after our birthmark had already disappeared. In the distance, we see some sort of radio tower.
Reading Donnelly by the weak afternoon sunlight. He landed on the south side of the island, followed the path to the bay and climbed the mount. He did not find the caves, and he did not chart the north side. I think this is why his understanding of the island is flawed, incomplete. He stood on the mount and only wondered momentarily how to descend. But then, he didn't have my reasons.
He did not find the caves, and he did not chart the north side. Okay. Oh, that wind do be picking up.
When someone had died or was dying, or was so ill they gave up what little hope they could sacrifice, they cut parallel lines into the cliff, exposing the white chalk beneath. You could see them from the mainland or the fishing boats, and know to send aid, or impose a cordon of protection, and wait a generation until whatever pestilence stalked the cliff paths died along with its hosts. My lines are just for this, to keep any would-be rescuers at bay. The infection is not simply of the flesh.
Okay, so this guy is ill, dying or already dead, and talking about his lines in the cliff. We got a change in flora over here. We got some red ones. A mysterious arrangement of stone pillars.
We are not like Lot's wife, you and I. We feel no particular need to turn back. There's nothing to be seen if we did. No tired old man parting the cliffs with his arms. No gifts or Bibles laid out on the sand for the taking. No tides turning or the shrieking gulls overhead. The bones of the hermit are no longer laid out for the taking. I have stolen them away to the guts of this island, where the passages all run to black, and where we can light each other's faces by their strange luminescence.
Yes, I definitely never feel the need to turn back. We haven't done that this episode at all. Haven't walked a path and then turned back to walk another path. That's definitely not me. Got a boat here. Not sure what to make of this at the moment, so we just gotta ride this out and see.
Dear Esther, I met Paul. I made my own little pilgrimage. My Damascus, a small semi-detached on the outskirts of Wolverhampton. We drank coffee in his kitchen and tried to connect to one another. Although he knew I hadn't come in search of an apology, reason or retribution, he still spiraled in panic, thrown high and lucid by his own dented bonnet. Responsibility had made him old. Like us, he'd already passed beyond any conceivable boundary of life.
Okay. Well. Heading into the caves, but there's also a path down here, it seems. Oh god, okay. Cave first, I guess.
I would leave you presents outside your retreat, in this interim space between cliff and beach. I would leave you loaves and fishes, but the fish stocks have been depleted and I've run out of bread. I would row you back to your homeland in a bottomless boat, but I fear we would both be driven mad by the chatter of the sea creatures.
Okay. Has this person painted us some pretty pictures? More of that. Okay. Looks like one of those like triangle signs you'd see on like the street or something. It's like construction ahead. Really interested in what this is. Like it looks very, it all looks very membrane-like. Okay. There's a, hey look, there's a little hole there. Can you get in there somehow? I don't think we can, Got some holes in the cliff faces as well. Wonder if this is our final destination over there. We're just constantly going to be traveling towards it.
I dreamt I stood in the center of the sun, and the solar radiation cooked my heart from the inside. My teeth will curl and my fingernails fall off into my pockets like loose change. If I could stomach, I'd eat, but all I seem capable of is salt water. Were the livestock still here, I could turn feral and gorge. I'm as emaciated as a body on a slab, opened up for a premature source of death. I've rowed to this island in a heart without a bottom, all the bacteria of my gut rising up to sing to me.
Chemistry. Okay. So I'm assuming this guy has written Esther a note about his declining condition, and it's like a farewell, I'm dying. And he's recounting, reminiscing, talking about stuff. And he's also a chemistry guy. It seems that he's got an illness of some kind that we have yet to determine what it could potentially be, but there are probably some likely guesses. And then after we've received this letter, we've decided to go to the island. So it's got the random chemistry book in the middle of the stone arrangement. Point of no return, baby. Let's go. Oh, okay. A loading screen exists. It's like classic Source engine.
Dear Esther, I have now driven the stretch of the M5 between Exeter and Bristol over 21 times. But although I have all the reports and all the witnesses, and have cross-referenced them within a millimetre using my Ordnance Survey maps, I simply cannot find the location. You'd think there would be marks to serve as some evidence. It's somewhere between the turn-off for Sanford and the welcome brake services, but although I can always see it in my rear-view mirror, I have as yet been unable to pull ashore.
Okay. Another light out in the distance. But yeah, classic Source engine. We've reached the end of a level, so we load the next one with that beautiful basic loading screen. There's an interruption I did not expect. I was like, oh. We do have some beautiful music to accompany us on this walk. Interesting. All right. Got our crashed boat, all of our shipping containers. If you look out super far into the distance, you will see Half-Life 2 Lost Coast happening. Because I'm assuming that path that was straight ahead of us. Oh, it's riding there. I'm assuming that path straight ahead of us that curves around and up is probably where we're headed. So this is like a little detour to check some more stuff. We'll have to read these words.
There must be a hole in the bottom of the boat. How else could new hermits have arrived?
Okay. And neither did he eat nor drink. So someone got onto the side of that boat, assumedly our letter writer, and wrote that. But it seems that we're also talking about hermits. There must be a hole in the boat. The strange mystery of just like random symbols and rock placements in the sand in a specific spot. Magical wards to keep evil away. Alright, we proceed. Going up and around. So seeing that being written on the boat like that means that it is a good idea to kind of do a little cheeky 360.
It's only at night that this place makes any sluggish effort at life. You can see the buoy and the aerial. I've been taking to sleeping through the day in an attempt to resurrect myself. I can feel the last days drawing upon me. There's little point now in continuation. There must be something new to find here. Some nook or some cranny that offers a perspective worth clinging to. I've burnt my bridges. I've sunk my boats and watched them go to water.
So yeah, we've got the boy, we've got the aerial, we've got the god rays coming down. I'm at a dead end actually. I thought I was going up and around. Oh, hang on. Up here. Continue upwards. I was like, I am at a dead end. Way up. Can I get up here? I don't know if we can. That is a bit too steep. This is back to where we started, is it not? Oh shit! Hang on. There's a path there. Up that through that way. Oh, oops. Imagine if there was fall damage. And it looks like I've missed. We're going this way. So it's funny that I'm like, the way that I think is the optional way turns out to be the right way, and then we go back to the dead end, and then we go back the right way again. So I think we're going up here.
I had kidney stones, and you visited me in the hospital. After the operation, when I was still half submerged in anesthetic, your outline and your speech both blurred. Now my stones have grown into an island and made their escape, and you have been rendered opaque by the car of a drunk.
You have been rendered opaque by the car of a drunk. Is that the car remains that we saw at the bottom of that cliff there? Are we dead? Have I been killed by a drunk driver on this island? Somehow? Been rendered opaque. Translucent like a ghost. This is gonna be me trying to get ahead of things now and be like, what is going on really? There's a big hole in the ground here.
When I first looked into the shaft, I swear I felt the stones in my stomach shift in recognition.
Whoa. It literally looks like we can walk right off the edge. Like, I don't even feel that there's a hint of barrier blocking me. Like, it looks like I could just tilt myself over the edge. It's kind of like, it's just scary to look down like that. I'm not going to yeet my character off the building. Off the cliff edge, as much as I want to. There's that urge to just go, intrusive thought. Yeet.
I've begun my ascent on the windless slope of the western side. The setting sun was an inflamed eye squeezing shut against the light shone in by the doctors. My neck is aching through constantly craning my head up to track the light of the aerial. I must look downwards, follow the path under the island to a new beginning.
Follow the path under the island to a new beginning. Okay. Had some medical procedures in the barn here. Or am I the person writing the letter? Because now I'm on this winding path. Am I not Esther at all? Am I being swindled? Who knows?
The bothy was constructed originally in the early 1700s. By then, shepherding had formalized into a career. The first habitual shepherd was a man called Jakobsen, from a lineage of migratory Scandinavians. He was not considered a man of breeding by the mainlanders. He came here every summer whilst building the bothy, hoping eventually that becoming a man of property would secure him a wife and a lineage. Donnelly records that it did not work. He caught some disease from his malcontented goats and died 2 years after completing it. There was no one to carve white lines into the cliff for him either.
No one to carve white lines in the cliff for him either. Chemistry, my dear Watson. Oh, there's some burnt texts. It's all ash.
Three cormorants seen at dusk. They did not land. This house built of stone, built by a long-dead shepherd. Contents: my camp bed, a stove, a table, chairs, my clothes, my books. The caves that score out the belly of this island, leaving it famished. My limbs and belly famished. This skin, these organs, this failing eyesight. When the battery runs out in my torch, I will descend into the caves and follow only the phosphorescence home.
Wow. There's this like structure, like fence line down there. Is it? Whoa!
Come back.
I've had my first death. I fell. Come back. Okay. I fell. So don't do that. For some reason, I didn't think that that was the barrier. I thought it looks like you could get a bit more, but you can really slide down from this place. Okay. I fell. And you're just instantly brought back with a comeback. There is a cave down there. Well, I didn't accidentally, I didn't purposefully throw myself down that hole, but I've got to experience death a couple of times in this game at the very least. So don't go sliding down random cliffs. You're like, oh, I'm curious. Look at that. Whoa, I'm dead. All right, let us push onwards then. Looks like we are going down this path. Let's go down this way, the slower way, and not speed running it by sliding down the cliffside.
It's a bit tight here. In a footnote, The editor comments that at this point, Donnelly was going insane as syphilis tore through his system like a drunk driver. He's not to be trusted. Many of his claims are unsubstantiated, and although he does paint a colourful picture, much of what he says may have been derived directly from his fever. But I've been here, and I know, as Donnelly did, that this place is always half imagined. Even the rocks and caves will shimmer and blur with the right eyes.
Donnelly was going insane as syphilis tore through his system. In an editor's footnote. So potentially Donnelly's the one that's ill writing this, and it's being read out by someone else, and it was edited by someone else.
They found Jakobsen in early spring.
Not sure.
The thaw had only just come. Even though he'd been dead nearly 7 months, his body had been frozen right down to the nerves and had not even begun to decompose. He'd struggled halfway down the cliff path, perhaps looking for some lost goat, or perhaps in a delirium, and expired, curled into a claw right under the winter moon. Even the animals shunned his corpse. The mainlanders thought to bring it home unlucky. Donnelly claims they dragged it to the caves to thaw out and rot, but he is proving an unreliable witness.
Or someone wrote this, and I don't know. Donnelly at least seems like the person that was ill here. I'm not sure who's narrating or reading this letter and who it was written by. There's also Jakobsen, who took a bit of a tumble. He's fallen and he can't get up.
Climbing down to the caves, I slipped and fell and have injured my leg. I think the femur is broken. It is clearly infected. The skin has turned a bright, tight pink, and the pain is crashing in on waves, winter tides against my shoreline, drowning out the ache of my stones. I struggled back to the bothy to rest, but it has become clear that there is only one way this is likely to end. The medical supplies I looted from the trawler have suddenly found their purpose. They will keep me lucid for my final ascent.
Jesus. The hell are those noises I'm hearing, dude? Why ain't getting spooky? Check down here before we check in the cave. Also, it's the second comment a couple of dialogue things ago. It's the second comment we've had about, like, drunk driving sort of thing. This is where you took your tumble and lost all of your books. A lot of the same history. Okay. And second comment made relating to, like, drunk driving, I think. We have a candle. Got some ambiance. Romantic cave. Oh god. Alright, deeper and deeper into the hole we go. Okay.
Donnelly did not pass through the caves. From here on in, his guidance, unreliable as it is gone from me. I understand now that it is between the two of us, and whatever correspondence can be drawn from the wet rocks.
Okay. Wow. New flashlight. Well, that's busted. Now we are relying on candlelight, which means someone has already fallen down here and had a supply of candles on hand. Like, my books. I've left them in my suitcase, but at least I've got me candles. In my trusty candle bag. And you don't really need it with the natural bioluminescence of the cave. Looks quite beautiful. This soundtrack is really, really nice too. Very good music that we've been treated to. We're on a trip of some kind, that's for sure. Did I just grow taller? I was like, what the hell? You growth spurt. I'm taller now. What the hell? Yes, I have grown.
I first saw him sat by the side of the road. I was waiting for you to be cut out of the wreckage. The car looked like it had been dropped from a great height. The guts of the engine spilled over the tarmac, like water underground.
So Esther was in a drunk driving accident. Waiting to be cut from the wreckage. So more paint and such is all throughout the caves once again. That looks like a map. That looks like a face. I mean, that looks like a circuit board. Yeah, and I don't think it's a map. I think it's maybe a circuitry, which is funny because a lot of people do like images of like circuit boards sometimes and they actually look like little cities and stuff. It's funny that my first thought was map and then I've changed it and went, wait. Because this is like molecule stuff. This is chemistry stuff here. And this looks very circuit board-like, I think. Oh, I am shorter again. As I crouch down. I'm very intrigued. Very intrigued. Look at this magical place. Geronimo. This was not at all what I was expecting. I was like, okay, we're potentially on some sort of island. That's where we came from. On some island hike to that aerial tower, radio tower maybe. And we'll be walking through the city and we're getting a cool narration. But now I'm exploring like underground, beautiful looking magic caves, and there's like, I don't think I am who I thought I was at the beginning.
In my final dream, I sat at peace with Jakobsen and watched the moon over the Sandford Junction. Goats grazed on the hard shoulder, a world gone to weed and redemption. He showed me his fever scars, and I mine, between each shoulder the nascency of flight.
I think we're going up, it seems, but there are pathways off to the left and right. And it seems that, like, in previous areas, if we've walked off to reach some dead ends, we've been rewarded with some interesting looking stuff. Look at the... We got crystals and shit down here. But is any of this for real or not? You know, are we having some sort of hallucination? So I think it was like there was one of the notes that was saying something about like the caves and the rocks all shimmer, you know, as if it's not entirely all there. This is a faster way of traveling back down. I'm struggling to get back up. This might actually end up being the way to go. I don't know. I can't get back up here. And I'm fighting the tide now. Do you reckon that's the way to go? If it is, we should probably go up there first, right? I'm fighting the tide now to get back up. Because I don't know, that looks like that could be like potentially a drop as we go deeper. As soon as I realized I couldn't just like easily get back up, I was like, wait a minute, I'm being taken. Let's see if we can get back up here, which we can. There we go. Oh, almost got swept away with the water there. Let's at least check up here and see. God, I was getting used to the speed of that water there. We've gone back to a crawl. Let's go up here. So maybe that's a dead end after all. Cool. Okay. Interesting.
This cannot be the shaft they threw the goats into. It cannot be the landfill where the parts of your life that would not burn ended up. It cannot be the chimney that delivered you to the skies. It cannot be the place where you rained back down again to fertilize the soil and make small flowers in the rocks.
Okay, well, this is the way to go. I think that must have just been a dead end then. We'll write that off, partially because it takes a long time to traverse. So Edith is definitely, I think, perished in some sort of drunk driving accident. Behold Damascus. Behold Damascus. I don't know. My God, though. Like, look at this. Hell. Damascus. Away from being I don't know what that says. Away from being and it shall be a fungus heap? And it shall be a fungus heap? For a swim. Oh joy, another hole. So we're being pointed in directions. Like, I'm seeing these arrows that are being painted with more arrows, so it looks like they're pointing us in the right direction every time. See ya. Sure. Okay. Oh, wow. Some sort of like the underwater highway, hospital bed after the accident, but then mixed in with some sort of like wishing well sort of image here with like the coins underwater. Really creepy, actually. Oh. Still underwater. Sheesh. Like I've just grown even slower. Loading. The next one. There we go. Wow.
I wish I could have known Donnelly in this place. We would have had so much to debate. Did he paint these stones or did I? Who left the pots in the hut by the jetty? Who formed the museum under the sea? Who fell silently to his death into the frozen waters? Who erected this godforsaken aerial in the first place? Did this whole island rise to the surface of my stomach, forcing the gulls to take flight?
What is happening now? Just being led by candlelight now. Seems that there's multiple paths again to take to the same destination. Like we can go down there or go around here. Photos of the car.
Assemble our own version of the North Shore. We will scrawl in dead languages and electrical diagrams and hide them away for future theologians to muse and mumble over. We will send a letter to Esther Donnelly and demand her answer. We will mix the paint with ashes and tarmac and the glow from our infections. We will paint a moon over the Sanford Junction and blue lights falling like stars along the hard shoulder.
What? There's a person up there. We will send a letter to Esther Donnelly. Electrical related painting stuff. I'm gonna go this way. Just to see if there's any dialogue to be gained by looking out like these little wooden jetties. Either that's an actual person standing out watching us, or that is some sort of statue or monument that has been built in memoriam. Oh, hang on. Oh, it's gone. Or is it just at a distance? I think I'm just maybe too far away. I just like freaked out. I'm like, oh, it's gone. I'm gonna walk out to this candle, see if anything happens. No. Nope. It's like maybe we'll get some more dialogue or something. Oh damn, we're like right underneath the aerial tower. Alright, let's take a walk. Let's see if this figure... I think it's still... Is it still... Yeah, it's still there. It's just like we just went too far away and it went, it's gone. I'm freaked out for no reason. Yeah, it's still there. We're close to the aerial tower. took too long on our walk. The music's gone. Been taking everything in. This went from just like a normal hike on an island cliffside to some sort of trippy adventure. That's for sure. Chemistry. All those scratches in the cliff face there. We had more wreckages and car pieces. So yeah, so we saw a bit of the car at the very start. Me, train carriage wheel. Much more sense for it to be a car.
By the roadside, by the exit for Damascus, all ticking and cooled, all feathers and remorse, all of these signals routed like traffic through the circuit diagrams of our guts, those badly written boats torn bottomless in the swells, washing us forever ashore.
Light from heaven shone around him. So the exit to Damascus. Following the candles. Weird noises.
From here, I can see my armada. I collected all the letters I'd ever meant to send to you, if I'd have ever made it to the mainland, but had instead collected at the bottom of my rucksack, and I spread them out along the lost beach. Then I took each and every one, and I folded them into boats. I folded you into the creases, and then, as the sun was setting, I set the fleet to sail. Shattered into 21 pieces, I consigned you to the Atlantic, and I sat here until I'd watched all of you sink.
On a sudden, a light from heaven shone around him, and he fell to the ground. Eggs. Good old eggs. Alright, up we go. Really know what to say yet. I'm still just very like curious, but I don't have anything to really add yet. I'm just slowly taking it in as we figure this out. I guess we'll be getting to the statue thing soon.
When Paul keeled over dead on the road to Damascus, they resuscitated him by hitting him in the chest with stones gathered by the roadside. He was lifeless for 21 minutes, certainly long enough for the oxygen levels in his brain to have decreased and caused hallucinations and delusions of transcendence. I'm running out of painkillers, and the moon has become almost unbearably bright.
Getting close to this figure.
I've begun my voyage in a paper boat without a bottom. I will fly to the moon in it. I've been folded along a crease in time, a weakness in the sheet of life. Now you've settled on the opposite side of the paper to me. I can see your traces in the ink that soaks through the fiber, the pulped vegetation. When we become waterlogged and the cage disintegrates, we will intermingle. When this paper aeroplane leaves the cliff edge and casts parallel vapor trails in the dark, we will come together.
Huh. And the figure that was standing here is no longer here, but instead I am now the figure standing here. What was a hallucination this whole time? It was like a statue figure, potentially? No. But, I mean, now there is. It's me. And as he was proceeding on his journey, and more is written up there. And he and come near don't know. And well, I don't know. Oh, and this one?
If only Donnelly had experienced this, he would have realized he was his own shoreline, as am I. Just as I am becoming this island, so he became his syphilis, retreating into the burning synapses, the stones, the infection.
Got the lighting change. Something about I think he was 3 days without sight. It's quite dark actually. Might just like bump that one up a little bit. Sometimes default brightness is a little too dark.
bent back like a nail, like a hangnail, like a drowning man clung onto the wheel, drunk and spiraled, washed onto the lost shore under a moon as fractured as a shattered wing. We cleave, we are flight and suspended, these wretched painkillers, this form inconstant. I will take flight, I will take flight.
And it came to pass that as I made the journey, and was it can't read it. I can't read it. But it's all written along the whole side. And could not see.
Blind with panic, deaf with the roar of the caged traffic, heart stopped on the road to Damascus, Paul sat at the roadside hunched up like a gull, like a bloody gull, as useless and as doomed as a syphilitic cartographer, a dying goat herd, an infected leg, a kidney stone, blocking the traffic bound for Sanford and Exeter. He was not drunk, Esther. He was not drunk at all. All his roads and his tunnels and his paths led inevitably to this moment of impact. This is not a recorded natural condition. He should not be sat there with his chemicals and his circuit diagrams. He should not be sat there at all.
I'd love to read this, but it's too close for me to see sometimes. And it's all written backwards as we walk. Some of it's much easier to read than the rest. I keep getting like weird survivor's guilt vibes from some aspect of this, I wonder, as well. If potentially it was like
twin vapor trails in the air, white lines etched into these rocks.
Huh. I noticed that. We looked up and zoomed up at that before in the sky. I looked at the vapor trail lines, the twin vapor trail lines similar to the twin line etchings in the cliff sides on the island. That's interesting. Yeah, I'm not sure why, but there's a part of it in what I'm reading and understanding that it feels like Esther perished in potentially this drunk driving incident, but potentially the driver may not have, which is the father.
Dear Esther, I have burnt my belongings, my books, this death certificate. Mine will be written all across this island. Who was Jakobsen? Who remembers him? Donnelly has written of him, but who was Donnelly? Who remembers him? I have painted, carved, hewn, scored into this space all that I could draw from him. There will be another to these shores to remember me. I will rise from the ocean like an island without bottom, come together like a stone, become an aerial, a beacon, that they will not forget you. We have always been drawn here. One day the gulls will return and nest in our bones and our history. I will look to my left and see Esther Donnelly flying beside me. I will look to my right and see Paul Jacobsen flying beside me. They will leave white lines carved into the air to reach the mainland, where help will be sent. Come back.
And faded to black. Is that the end? That is the end. Oh God. Okay, that was a very interesting experience. That was like we were taken on an adventure there. There was a trip trying to, pull that apart piece by piece, figure out what was going on there. There's no music in the credits, but like I wanna immediately just be like, whoa, what did we go through just then? There's some things that I was trying to gather, but I just want to be able to like look this up immediately and check this out so we can go through it and have more of an understanding. Oh, okay. An anonymous man reading a series of letter fragments to his deceased wife, Esther. As the player reaches new locations on the island, the game plays a new letter fragment relating to that area. Different audio fragments are revealed in each playthrough. Different audio fragments are revealed in each playthrough of the game, presenting a slightly different narrative each time. Several other characters are referred to by the narrator, a man named Donnelly who charted the island in the past, Paul, who is suggested to be the drunk driver in the accident in which Esther died, and a shepherd named Jacobsen who lived on the island in the 18th century. So the identities of the characters become more blurred and the player is made to draw their own conclusions of the story. That's really interesting. So when I was getting some weird survivor's guilt stuff, I was wondering if Paul was still alive. And so this anonymous man reading about these different people who were around this island at different times. But yeah, so there you go. So it was a man who was reading a series of letters to his deceased wife, Esther, and saying, that's why he was like, they were like hearing like that come back sort of thing. Wow, that's very, very interesting. So it's saying that here, because I'm like, I've finished it now. I'm like, immediately I need to be like, hang on, what the hell? I need to see what the hell is going on here. But it says different audio fragments are revealed in each playthrough, presenting a slightly different narrative each time, which is quite curious. I don't know. That is yeah, it's a beautiful game, and I really liked the imagery. I liked the narration aspect to it. It got very creepy, it got very strange at some point. Yeah, there's a lot to piece together and probably analyze for it, because and then it says, you know, there's a lot that is to, you know, you piece together things in your own way from what you can get through the game. But it was definitely an experience. I'm probably going to go and read up on some things about this one. It makes me so curious to be like, well, I want to piece it all together. And it was also shorter than I expected as well, because I was like, this might take us like a couple of hours or something like that. So it was definitely shorter than I expected. So there is just the 4 chapters of the lighthouse, the boy, the caves, and the beacon. I didn't know if there were more because I just wasn't scrolling through it. There's a director's commentary, which I'm quite intrigued about. I wonder how the director's commentary will play into the actual dialogue in the game itself. Will it just be commentary and no game dialogue? Oh, it'll be like this. Okay.
Hello everyone, I'm Dan Pinchbeck, I'm the creative director of The Chinese Room, and this is the Dear Esther developers commentary.
Hi, I'm Rob Briscoe, I'm the artist on Dear Esther.
And I'm Jessica Curry, and I was the composer on the game.
So what you're looking at today is a remake of a mod. Dear Esther started off in 2007 as a Half-Life 2 mod that did really, really well in the modding community, which was fantastic, and as a result of that attracted the attention of Rob, who worked as the primary developer on a Source remake of the game that was released in 2012. And this year is another remake where it's been updated for a cross-platform release, and we wanted to add in this developer's commentary just to give you a bit more of an insight into some of the ideas behind the game as it came together.
Nice. So a remake of a remake of a mod. So I know it was a mod, but looks like it's also been remade a couple of times.
So you'll see around you in a lot of the environments, there's a lot of detail ingrained into everything. One of the things that I wanted to do with Dear Esther is bring the visuals up to the same kind of level of detail that Dan and Jess had put into the other areas of the game. So all of the history and the kind of hidden pieces of story that are intertwined with the VOs and the music and stuff, I kind of wanted to bring some of that into the environments. So if you look around you, you'll see that there's a lot of interesting bits and pieces, a piece of paper with someone's name on it, a photograph, an ultrasound. All of these little bits and pieces are kind of laid in to just kind of bring another aspect of the story into the game. And also, they're actually randomized, so every time you play, you'll see something different lying around. And this is just to build on this idea that everybody has a unique experience and a unique interpretation of the story.
That's really neat. Okay, so unique experiences, unique interpretations of the story, randomizing things. An ultrasound is mentioned, so I guess we could probably assume with that in mind that we would have had Esther potentially being pregnant at the time as well, at the time of death, which makes this an even more of a tragic tale of like this husband that has gone to this island in just absolute misery, written Esther so many letters that can never be read by her, and also processing, I guess, the loss of a child in that as well, which is just very tragic. And yeah, randomized elements of the game each time is a very interesting way to do it as well. So it, even though it is sort of like this sort of slow just the word that I'm looking for, I don't know, it's just like it's a very like slow methodical journey that we go through here. but it gives it an element of replayability with apparently different dialogue and also different things within the environment itself. It looks like if you do director's commentary, the game dialogue is gone.
Part of the point about the whole game, I think, was this idea that rather than having a linear, straight-through version of the story, that we could have multiple story units for each place you were, and I was really interested in this idea of how you can open up that space that people can interpret. So I loved the idea that you could have two people that had played this game and then would have a conversation about it, and one of them would say, oh, what did you think about when this happened? And the other person would be like, well, that didn't happen for me. I had a completely different event happen or a completely different story happen. And it kind of feels very gamey in that way, that actually one of the things I love about writing for games is that you hand over so much control to the player that it becomes their story, and that's really, really important rather than trying to force them. So using randomised blocks of voiceover in the game and the kind of randomised prop details that Rob was talking about means that it gives it a really different feeling every time you go through. And that's kind of interesting for me, because I like the idea of going, well, not everyone has to have the same experience, and because it's interactive, you have the capacity to have very different experiences occupying the same space. So yeah, but balancing all that then becomes an absolute nightmare.
I think it's nice though, because everybody gets a personal experience. Like, I love reading the forums and seeing how people come and they sort of tell their story and what they interpreted of it, and then you see other people discussing what they thought of it. And to me, it's kind of nice because everybody takes something unique away from it.
So yeah, to add on what I was saying, I was picking up to survivor's guilt stuff. It wasn't survivor's guilt necessarily from the man who caused the event, but it was like this sort of interpretation and perspective of this man who had obviously outlived a wife and an unborn child, I think. There's a really interesting take where it's like, where there's these letter fragments, it gives me the idea that there was obviously, the game talks about how there were so many letters written and folded into those boats and flown out to sea, that it's like we're only getting parts of some of those letters, I suppose, that when you could play this game again and then just get a whole other randomized bunch of little letter fragments. I think that's really interesting to like piece together a like more of a full story. And I like this insight into that, actually.
When I wrote the music for the mod of Dear Esther, there was absolutely no budget whatsoever for live players, so all the music was sampled. But one of the good things about that is it actually forced me to be quite creative about how I wrote the music. So with my background in sound art, I wanted to use samples in a different way that wasn't just using it to sound like a violin. I wanted to time stretch and manipulate samples to make something different and strange and quite unique. But then when we got the Indie Fund money, I had the amazing opportunity to re-record the music with live players. And that was so exciting for me, actually, because that's where it comes to life. And I thought long and hard about whether to write new music, going from the mod to the commercial version, but actually I decided that my initial and original emotional response to the game was probably going to be the strongest response and reaction that I had. So I just literally, the music that I'd written for samples, I then wrote out for live instruments. But what they bring to it is transformative, actually. And I think The Beach is a really good example of this, where, you know, you have these awful samples soaring away, and then you have the string quartet playing this very bleak, very sparse music, and they bring the presence of the island immediately to it, and it comes to life. And that's the exciting thing about it. It wasn't a huge budget, but just having that experience of working with the players was just magical.
Yeah, it was really, really good insight into that, because I really like the music, and I made multiple points to be out. The music's like really great here. It sort of sells it just that much more. It's realizing that the music was obviously redone as well, but kept the same just with live players is great. Music is very, very effective.
Everything about Esther for me is a dream. The landscape is not an island, it's the dream of an island. The music is like music that you wake up because you've heard in your sleep, but you're not conscious of hearing it. And the language and the story was supposed to be like that as well. It didn't matter the sense it made, it was more about the kind of the shapes it created, if that makes sense. So that the words would kind of were like being in water, like listening to something underwater. It'd be this very dreamlike, symbolic, poetic thing, and it always frustrated me in games with game writing. This has really changed quite a lot. There was never any space for poetic language. It was very exposition-y, very descriptive, very direct, and you'd have like art and audio would have these amazing creative spaces they could explore. But when it came down to actually writing, you just had to basically go into the room, describe the character, tell the player what to do. And it just seemed like the most boring thing you could do with words in a game. And why couldn't a writer have the same artistic freedom as a visual artist or an audio designer or a musician, in terms of being able to say, isn't this just about creating this kind of emotional tone, this emotional space? And it's really, I still love that about the game. It's one of the things I love so much about Nigel's voiceover, is it has this really odd, disconnected, kind of dreamlike quality to it, where you might finish the game and not actually understand anything that happened, but you're being carried along in the flow of it. And without any kind of sarcasm at all, I get into trouble saying things like this. The same design principle applies as this to Halo. It's 30 seconds of fun, or 30 seconds of depressing engagement, I guess, in our case. But it is about that loop of being in the moment in the game constantly, and that's actually the critical thing that matters.
That's a really neat touch. I liked the commentary about the being underwater sort of musical stuff and like being in a dream and like that kind of thing, because there's a specific point in the game where you actually are underwater in the most dream-like segment of it, where you're like walking through on a highway underwater, weird hospital bed, all these like coins on it sort of stuff, and then you like emerge from the water again. I like that.
This symbol on the beach, which is the golden ratio, is...
That's it, golden ratio.
It's one of the only things that's really left explicitly from the mod. In the original mod, there was an awful lot of more kind of symbols and kind of a much more kind of mystical, sort of magical element to the island. There was a lot of very weird stuff in there. And a lot of them came out of the commercial version because they felt like they were a little bit explicit. I mean, instead, there's a lot more hidden kind of codes and symbols in there. There's still some stuff which you can only actually see or experience if you are not playing the game, if you're looking at it from editor. We had in the original mods things like trees planted to mirror the shape of the M5, or there's a whole bunch of things that are there to represent star clusters and all kinds of things like that. And we'll probably talk a bit more about kind of like hidden details and the secrets in the game as we go through. But that was really interesting for us in terms of the design of it, of going, you've got your kind of, your conscious, explicit play experience, but games are always constantly manipulating your mood and your feelings and the decisions you're making. And so really trying to create a space that had all of these kind of subliminals in it was a really interesting thing that we wanted to do, both with the original, and then I think it got lifted up into a much more sophisticated version when we went to the commercial, because Rob was able to bring that sort of level of artistry to the visuals that really got that kind of sense of hidden meaning in there. And that was really important, given how kind of complex and symbol heavy and poetic the story is, where a lot of it doesn't actually make any sense, but it's about kind of leaving you with these, I guess, like the half-life of ideas and thoughts that you can't quite shake, that stay with you. So we really were trying to get that blend of how music, story and visuals could all create that really sort of uncanny structure that you wouldn't necessarily be able to define properly, but you knew it kind of had a meaning that was staying with you.
I get that perspective for sure, because I spent this whole time, I'm a very analytical and logical thinker at times, so I do spend a lot of times trying to piece things together and like see how things connect. I do that with a lot of my playthroughs and story. Like, I will see things and I will start trying to like think about the trajectory of that, and this game is obviously intentionally scattered and I'm still trying to go piece this together. I'm trying to understand this character and how he relates to this, and what am I seeing here and what am I getting. So it's very interesting putting that sort of thinking into a game, that its specific approach is to be like that scattered level of storytelling, where it's kind of all over the place. It's dependent on what you actually look at, what you are told in your in the voice lines, what you actually choose to experience and allow yourself to see.
So something I wanted to do as an artist was create some kind of reward for the player when they explore the island. There are some areas of the game where it's a little bit more quieter. There's no music or there's no voiceovers. So I kind of wanted to create a bit of an incentive for people to explore. And you'll find around the island that these kind of like random scattered items that are usually slightly out of place from the environment themselves, but in another aspect they actually bring a little bit of story to the island itself, usually to the island or to the actual protagonists or the characters that surround it. So you'll find that around the island these little props and stuff. Just keep your eye out for it if you're exploring.
That's cool, because it's of stuff that we've seen and then stuff that we've tried to piece together, because you're like, well, obviously this has been placed here for a reason. It's not just here for no reason. So we're like, let's see if we can figure this out. So it's cool that that's intentional, obviously.
So people have asked why the Dear Esther's set on a Hebridean island. What's really interesting about this is one of those times when your kind of aspirations as an artist and the practical realities kind of dovetail. We knew that we had to have some way of limiting the player from disappearing off the play space, and when we made the original, it was a mod, and because it was a Half-Life 2 mod, you kind of had Eastern European city, spaceship, or blasted, desolate landscape, where you had three options if you didn't want to start making any other assets.
Yeah.
So it started off with these practical constraints. We don't want to set it on a spaceship, we don't want to set it in an Eastern European city, so it's got to be on this kind of like this desolate landscape. And we want to limit the player, so an island seems like a natural choice. And it's really interesting how you start from that, and we had this big lump of clay on a table that we were carving out paths and things to annoying the cleaners and things like that. And Jess and I were talking, and Jess started making sort of snippets of music to kind of go in there. And then all of a sudden we just went, oh, that's the story. Oh, that's what happened here. But it really started, I think, from the place. And when we started looking at photographs of Bore, we started going and reading some of the history behind it. Suddenly that was it. And it just was really, really naturally became, this is the place, this is what happened here, this is how it feels. And then everything else kind of coalesced around that.
Yeah, I think as an artist it made my job a lot easier, because those islands are so kind of like, the environment is kind of hostile. You're out there in the Hebrides. You've got this kind of like inclement weather. You've got cold, rain, snow. It's a very kind of it can be a very depressing place to be at times, but it's also at the same time very beautiful, and it's this kind of like stark, bare landscape, but has this beautiful surroundings. So it's, in terms of art, I think it really helped me to portray a lot of the themes in Dear Esther.
And there was a natural fit with the music as well. It suggested a musical style, which was really key, I think.
I really do like these insights, and while I think there is most likely going to be developer commentary littered throughout, obviously, all 4 of the chapters, I think I'm just going to check out the developer commentary for this first chapter first in this video, and I'm going to look into the rest of it, I think, in my own time as I take in this game and its experience. But I'm really appreciative of a lot of the elements and discussion that's happening here, because you feel a lot of it through the actual game itself. So it's really nice having that sort of validated through the developers' perspectives as well, that you're like, I see and I felt that when I played it, you know?
One of the things you're always trying to do as a composer is create memorable themes. And a slight confession is that probably the most memorable theme, which is Remember in Dear Esther, wasn't actually created for the game. Rob's looking shocked. So it was actually from a piece of choral music that I'd written years before, based on a Christina Rossetti poem called Remember. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I was talking about earlier was how I didn't have any budget. So I had this piece of choral music, and I thought, hang on, this is absolutely perfect for Esther, but I don't want to use all of it. So the only bit that you actually get in the game is the first line of the choral piece of music. But that actually went on to form the main theme of the music that I wrote. And I think for me it's really interesting about how things that you've written earlier, years before, sometimes come in really, really useful and fit. So I always tell people and students not to despair if something doesn't get used or doesn't work at the time, because actually there'll come a place or in a time where you think, hang on a minute, I've got something that fits. So in terms of that memorable theme, the Remember theme gets used in multitude of different ways during the game. And one of the things it does is helps you to identify the kind of psychic place that you're in the game. So the theme is played in lots of different ways, and actually you'll notice that as you go through the game, it becomes more and more broken and more manipulated and broken down as the player goes through the journey and as you're psychologically struggling to get to the end point in the game. So music's really, really useful for highlighting the psychological mood, and we talk a lot about psychogeography, which always sounds a bit pretentious, but actually I think it's really important to what the three of us did in the game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dan, maybe you want to talk
like
a bit
the
about
core
that.
kind of idea about psychogeography. If you're not in the place you're in, is not the place you're in, or you create the place you're in. It's not just as you're here and then the landscape's out there, but you don't navigate like a city by street signs and by those kind of formal things. You navigate it by the things which are significant to you in the way that you've lived in that space. And I think that was really kind of key to, I think it's really central to how the fusion of art and story and music come together in Dear Esther, because it's not a place where we're going, right, we have to lead the player up here because it's a natural formation, and then you would naturally have a piece of music here because you come around a corner. But the story, music and art all work around the idea of what's going on in the narrator's head at this point. How do we represent his emotional state relative to this landscape? And again, it's that idea of the game is, it's a dream of a place. It's like the idea of it being a fever dream or a coma dream, which obviously ties in a lot with the kind of story, and we'll come back to in a lot more detail when we get to the caves a bit later on.
It's really neat when it's talking about sort of like how the landscape is built, because there's multiple times where the narrator is like referring to himself as the island, or like the other characters as like the stones and stuff like that, which I think is quite creative in sort of blending sort of the writing with the actual environment that you're in, and like sort of they're setting it up as like this is some sort of like a dream, it's a psychological experience, that sort of thing. So I really like how the island might not necessarily be like a physical real place, but more of a manifestation of this man's mental state at the time. You know what I mean? The narrator's mental state.
White lines.
Yeah.
They actually did this. It was really cool. I found this historical document. They used to do this on Bora and the Hebrides. If their disease broke out,
Really?
they'd actually chip out and expose the chalk. So if you're on a boat and you were coming to the island, you know not to land because it was infectious, which is the coolest, most amazing. It's one of those things where you go, it's almost impossible as a writer to come up with something as cool as that. It just has to be something that was actually done. And it's so sad as well. And I love this bit and the fact that we can do it, because it feels really real, because it references a real thing. And I don't know, there's something really special about that. But it was always one of those bits in the game that I thought, we've got to be able to represent this somehow. We have to be able to get these things in here.
Yeah, I mean, that's really interesting. I actually didn't know that was actually based historically in real life, but that's really cool, because I mean, my thing about the White Lines is that it was this completely surreal thing, but also it was kind of it just added to the landscape. It's like, whoa, what the hell is that? And putting that into the game was kind of challenging, because to me it just seemed like, oh, it's going to be really hard to pull off in a way that's kind of realistic. But then when you look at the kind of art style of the game, it's not really a realistic thing. Like, everything is half imagined. So in that way, it kind of really fit into the landscape, and it kind of creates this amazing sort of landmark that you see in the environment. And I just found it really interesting to hear about that.
I think it's one of those things where it's not a realistic place. And I mean, no game is a realistic place anyway, but one of those things where understanding that you're making something which isn't real, and you have that kind of capacity to explore it artistically. And we'll come back and talk about sort of like it not being realistic, I think, in a little while. But that's really, really important, because then you can say it's about what these things kind of represent, or how they make you feel as a player. not about going, is this accurate? And I get really inspired by sort of doing a lot of research into kind of history and things like that with all of our games, because you can just find those things that just kind of like speak to you. But it's amazing you can find that in like an 18th century book and go, that really speaks to me now, that has meaning now, and that's fascinating, I think.
I really love that when you can tell the amount of like sort of passion from developers that goes into games like this. This is why I will always appreciate sort of whether they be mods or smaller project indie games or stuff like that have like maybe smaller teams, no budget, smaller budget, whatever, is like you can always tell that there's a genuine passion to get something made, get a story told, or just have an experience that like they consider to be worth experiencing. And I love that so much more than some sort of, you know, executive think tank AAA, these are the trends in gaming right now, let's make another one of these, you know, and then we'll half-ass it, it'll be broken upon release, all of that kind of sad, miserable current state of gaming stuff. But I love the fact that, you know, the gaming landscape is still very much littered with people that are very, very passionate about trying to get something genuine and real out there, and I really like it. I love historical influence coming out in ways like this as well. It's always funny that's like, if they ever deal with the infection and it subsides, I'm like, will they paint over the white lines? They'll be like, it's okay now. You can come back to the island. It's fine.
Something that I wanted to bring through in the art of the game was the same kind of fidelity that you find in both Jessica's music and Dan's writing. In the same kind of way that you have all of these little details, these very close attentions to detail that kind of really bring richness to the story. And something that was missing in the original mod version was just this lack of a visual layer of story. And something that I did throughout the art of the game is to add in all these little details here and there, little bits of story, little links to certain things that you may or may not hear or see, just a layer of richness in the world and give you some kind of reward for exploring. So keep your eye out as you look around.
There's a scene in Donnie Darko where Drew Barrymore's playing his English teacher, and she talks about Celador as being the most beautiful word in the English language, and about it's the sound of the words together. And Dear Esther actually comes from the introduction from a Faith No More song, the Crab song on the first album, Introduce Yourself. And there's a point where, I think it's Chuck at that point, as the vocalist before Mike Patton, just says, Dear Esther. And it really lodged with me, because the sound Dear Esther, it just has a really amazing sound to it. And I think when we started making it, and the idea of it being these series of letters to someone came through, it just came straight back out of going, that's just a really beautiful sounding combination of words. And I think that really sums up the whole approach to the writing in Dear Esther of what's the most beautiful combination of words and images we can put together, and to do it that way rather than writing a traditional plot as such. So yeah, Dear Esther, Faith No More and Doom, that's where it comes from.
Very interesting. I love Faith No More, but I didn't know that. I'm gonna have to go listen to that song now.
I think the central question to the entire experience for most people that have played it or are talking about it is this idea of, is the island real? Is what's going on a literal event of a man walking across a Scottish island, or is it a dream that he's had? Does the island even exist? And one of the things that we try to do with the writing is to constantly lull the player into a position where they got an understanding, they made a decision about what they thought was going on, and then to undercut it. So you never actually were able to settle on any one interpretation. And that was the challenge I set myself when I wrote the original mod, was can we put a story in a game that not only lends itself to multiple interpretations, but there is no stable interpretation. Every single interpretation you have will always have questions, and you'll never be able to fully trust what you think you understand about the game. So it's challenging, I think, for that result. And it becomes quite a challenging kind of game story because of that, because you don't ever get that situation to go, I understand it now, I can walk away from this thing and it's all closed off and it's tidy. It was a very deliberate attempt to say, no matter where you think you are with this story, you're always questioning whether or not that's right.
That's a really interesting take. I genuinely think that this has such a unique approach to a game, and that's what I love about video games is when they are like, let's do something different. Let's try and take a different approach to either storytelling or gameplay or presentation and try and just give the player something unique. And this certainly fits into that realm of unique in a positive way.
One of the things that's been most commented on with the audio and the music in Dear Esther is how sparse it is. And that was a really deliberate tactic. I wanted to leave room for the player to think and to dream and to wonder and to put their own interpretation into what was happening. And I think the problem with so much modern media is how bombarded we are constantly. It's the kind of MTV, flash in your face, constant music. And Dan and I watch a lot of drama together, and there really is constant
Endless,
music.
which is constantly telling you what you should feel, like really clearly, and it's like being kind of beaten up by the music sometimes.
And when you read a lot of reviews of Dear Esther, a lot of people say they had this time to think and to interpret, and that was one of their favourite things, that they placed themselves so directly into the game, and it's their experience. And I think that's actually the greatest success of the game on all points, from the story to Rob's art to the music, is we all left space for the player to dream.
That's a really good intention to put into the game as well, because I certainly agree with that. And it's funny because I don't know when this commentary was done. I think this game is the Landmark Edition is quite a few, many years old now. And it's funny how much more relevant that commentary is today, even more so when we have stuff like TikTok, which is just constantly wired into people's brains. So many different sounds, music, things, conflicting emotions, things that are being like just injected into their brains just over and over and over again. And if you don't like what you're currently seeing, you just instantly swipe to the next thing and to the next thing and to the next thing. And it's just like this constant bombardment of noise. And I will admit that I also get stuck into that as well. I can, be aware of it, but, these are things that are built to hook you in. There are like streaming services and platforms and all of that are engineered in a way specifically to like hook you in and make it easier for you to just switch to the next thing. As long as you are still using their platform, you're hooked in, and like, TikTok is one of those prime examples that comes to mind when I'm told that from the commentary, because it's like there's this constant thing where you're on TikTok and it's like, oh, haha, funny video, oh, war and famine, and you should be aware of this, and oh, look at this very interesting creative piece, and oh, these people are dead, and oh, happy cute dog, and it's all of the, and you're scrolling through it, and it's just this. Our human brains are not meant to take in such a differing variety of emotional content in such a short amount of time, and it's just like rotting our brains slowly. And it's not just TikTok that's doing that, it's everything. It's also YouTube, so I'm also to blame because I'm doing YouTube videos, but I like to think that I'm a little bit of an outlier in that I do long form content that isn't for 60-second attention spans, you know what I mean? So it's a little bit different, but it all is in the same bucket, so I that's just the tangent for me to run off with on sort of musical elements of a game being more sparse, because it allows you to, do your own things. That also relates to, being able to form your own ideas and interpretations and opinions is very important as well, because a lot of things that people will do, especially in the online space, is people, before they engage or absorb media on their own and form their own opinion, is people will read reviews, people will go to a comment section first of a video to see what the general opinion is of the masses and allow that to influence their own opinion before going into something. It's a thing that happens all of the time, because I've seen so many people make sort of commentary about the fact that when they watch a video with the comments off, they struggle because they don't know what everyone else's opinion is that has viewed the video first, and they have some sort of weird sort of fear that they don't want to be the one that liked it or hated it and everybody else has the different opinion. It's weird sort of science with social media stuff, with our brain chemistry, but it happens a lot. People will run to the comment sections first and be like, okay, their general opinion has already motivated me to have that same opinion, going into this video. It almost pre-wires you to either like or hate something that you absorb before you've absorbed it yourself. And people do this all the time where they're like, oh, the reviews for this are bad, therefore I'm expecting to hate it. The general opinion of the masses is that this is bad, so I'm going in expecting to hate it, and it's that sort of closed-mindedness that really sort of hurts us as a whole, because everybody gets very closed-minded and like they just follow some mass opinions, and I try my very best to always go against that. Like, as an example, I played a particularly controversial Mass Effect game called Andromeda that seems to be kind of universally panned and hated for, multiple reasons, but I always go into my games on the channel with a very, very open mind, and form my own opinions and sort of can relate that to other people's sort of perspectives, but I never like to just go along with, oh, everybody hates this, so I should probably hate it too. That, again, is probably an even looser tangent from that commentary thread, but it just sort of, I feel, plays into the larger sort of feelings and ideas of like we are being told how to feel about things, whether it be like the musical bombardment, but it's also the opinions of everybody else that we sort of allow ourselves to be influenced instead of forming your own opinions first and feeling confident in your own opinions as well. Like, it's okay to like things that other people don't like. So it is loosely connected to that tangent. I'm providing my commentary on the developer commentary at this point. Let's proceed.
So there's a lot of places in the game where you see a lot of strange things, and this is very deliberate. One of the things we wanted to do is just kind of like not spoon feed the player every little piece of story. We kind of just, some things are literally just in there to just kind of let you think and let you decide on whatever you want to bring to the story yourself. So it's kind of like I approached it like an impressionist painting where you've got like this kind of very vague outline of things, but if you stare at it enough, you can kind of like fill in the spaces, and kind of the image comes together on its own. So a lot of these kind of strange pieces of geography and stuff, that's really kind of deliberate in some ways, just to kind of keep the player's mind open and kind of bring their own interpretations of the story through that.
That's cool. Yeah, I like that, because we see that like strange sort of rocky arrangement with a chemistry book placed in the middle. It's just like, what am I looking at? What am I experiencing? And I believe this segment right here is the ending of the first chapter. And while there are 3 more chapters with developer commentary, I think I'm going to try and go through that maybe in my own time, because there will be quite a lot of it, I assume. But I did like being able to go through the first chapter of developer commentary just to see their sort of initial insight into the development and sort of the structuring of this game, especially with it being also a remake of a mod. But it's also cool that you get changes to the main menu as well. But that'll be where we bring this episode, this one and done video of Dear Esther, to a close. It was a very great experience. Obviously, I liked it enough to immediately go through the developer commentary for a time and just to get an idea of what was going on there. And I really do like the approach. I like the behind the scenes sort of perspectives that we've got on putting together this experience, and it makes more sense with that in mind of how this game is structured. I really enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed coming along with me for the Dear Esther journey, my experience, my perspective on this scattered, disjointed, dreamlike adventure. It was really nice. I expect that I might even take myself through it another time just to see if I could have another different experience, but I would definitely be taking in some of the developer commentary as well myself. And I liked being able to like sort of react to the first chapter's commentary with you and sort of provide some sort of my own perspective and sort of commentary on that as well. So I hope you've enjoyed this Dear Esther blind experience I certainly enjoyed it. I will be going through my list of other shorter games and experiences that we can drop on the channel over time as well. So keep your eyes out for some other games that can be completed in one video. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you liked this video, let me know. Please do give it a like and also subscribe if you haven't already, because it helps me a lot and I'd really appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll see you next time.